Today on The Revolution Will Be Televised, we talk to Frank Stronghorse, the author of 3 books, The Mammonite Agenda, The Awakening of Angels, and his latest, My Journey into the Infinite. Frank speaks about his shifts in consciousness while on his journey through a multidimensional life. He shares his wisdom born of experience in conversation with Kestrel Andrus.
Well, mine was a little more radical than some others, and then others have more that are more radical than mine.
Right.
A lot of people don't get their calling until they just hit rock bottom.
Exactly.
Okay.
Right.
Well, I didn't. I wasn't in that place at all. Now, I was living in Dallas, Texas. I was a very successful real estate broker. I was burning the candle at both ends. I mean, I was having a great time, making money, very successful. And, I'd read Siddhartha, and I'd read all the Castaneda books, and so I dabbled in spirituality, but nothing serious, nothing, no commitment, nothing,
Right. That said, I want to aspire to study this.
Yeah. In fact, at one point I was living here in Santa Fe, and there was a gentleman who was a priest in the Native American Church, and he kept telling me, "You need to do this, you need to do this," and I kept saying, I don't think so. Mm-hmm. So, long story short, this lady came into my office one day who was an apprentice to Sun Bear. Mm-hmm. And she said, "There's a guy coming to town, you need to go see him." And I said, "Why?" Mm-hmm. And she said, "Well, because it'll change your life." Mm-hmm. And I was like, what exactly do I need to change? I'm doing pretty good,
do
actually.
I look like I'm suffering?
Right.
But very interesting that you're, and a similar experience.
Yeah.
That you have people show up and say, I'm supposed to tell you something, I'm supposed to teach you something. And you go, huh?
No, they saw more in me than I saw in myself,
saw in
absolutely.
Yourself. That's oftentimes.
Yeah, and so, she said, she gave me the guy's name, and she said, well, he's a Nagual. Well, I'd read all the Castaneda books, and I was familiar with the term Nagual. Well, that kind of caught my attention.
Okay, and what is it? And tell me what.
Well, a Nagual, in Castaneda's books, he was doing a thesis on the use of hallucinogenic plants in the Yaqui Indian rituals. Mm-hmm. So he went down to Sonora Desert looking for somebody that could teach him that. And he was in a bus station, and Don Juan came up to him. He says, "I understand you're here looking for me." He said, "Well, I didn't. What?" And so that's how it started off with them. Mm. Well, Don Juan is a Nagual, and so a Nagual really is sort of like the priest of the Yaqui Indian tradition.
Okay.
Now, the tradition that I follow, which is called Twisted Hair, is older than that, and so the Nagual designation really goes all the way back to Oaxaca, even before that, or early South Central America. Pre-Mayan, way back, and so it was an old tradition that involved priests, magicians, medicine people, So anyway, she said he's an Nagual. That kind of caught my attention, and so as the week went by, it just kept on. It was just on my head.
Right.
Just on and on. And finally, I said, "All right, I'll go."
Exactly.
Go.
Exactly.
And so I show up at this workshop, not having a clue.
Right.
And the first thing that I noticed is that there's some guy out there building a sweat lodge, which I've never seen before. Mm. And this is in Texas in the summer.
And how old are you at this point when this is
39.
happening? Okay, cool.
And so he's bending, they're building, so I was supposed to go out and help him, and which I did. And and like I said, I didn't even know what a sweat lodge was. Well, anyway, we finished, and so the first night he kind of went through a whole deal about his teachings and this and that, and it was kind of semi-interesting, but I wasn't all that enthralled with it. And then he said, "Okay, now we're going to go out and do a sweat lodge." I said, "Okay, what's that?" And he says, "We're all going to disrobe, and then we're going to climb in this hut, and we're going to sweat and pray." And I was like, "What? We're going to what?"
This is all still new.
And so everybody's like, "Yay!" And
right.
And I'm like, "Really?" Okay, well, in my book I say that it's the first time I disrobed in front of another opposite gender person without some clear intention. So
that's interesting. So they had completely.
Yes, everybody was.
Wow, I've never heard of that.
And the purpose in that is to free the energy. Okay, it's not and part of it is to help you get, because the inhibitions is what keep us covered up and not allow our true sense of self to come out. So there's we get a lot of criticism. Sunbury particularly used to criticize, or Jaime Storm used to criticize me about that. Yeah, and I get that, and I don't do that now. I just, because I live in Texas. So I don't. But I've had people in the sweat lodge that have a bandana around their head because they're playing Indian and they start about to pass out, and I'm like, well, take the bandana off, Right. So it's about freeing up your energy and just.
Yes, and I've wondered that too about wearing hats.
Yeah,
I've had that thoughts come to me like, well, that's wouldn't be okay.
Totally.
But so basically, the taking off the clothes is you're going in with no ego.
Yeah, that's exactly.
No identification, even clothing wise.
Plus, it's so dark in there you can't see anything anyway.
Exactly.
You can't see anything in front of your face.
Right.
So we go through this whole sweat lodge, and I've probably done hundreds of sweats since then, but this is still one of the top 5 craziest ever. And the girl in front of me, like, literally falls back and just sort of passes out in my arms, and I'm like, oh my God, everything's gonna be okay. I'm trying to wake up. And next to me is this grandmother, and she's doing like her best impression of The Exorcist. And spit's flying, and I'm thinking, and I remember I say in my book, I said I had my first vision, and it was a Corona beer. And I kept thinking, oh, dude,
a cold one.
Yes, a really cold one. And I kept thinking, dude, you have really crossed the line here, And I came out, and I was like, wow, something happened.
What'd you feel? Well,
quiet, peaceful, something.
Integrated?
Yeah, I just was, I didn't know it at the time, but what had happened is I'd found my true self, my true authentic self.
In that one sweat?
In that one sweat. In fact, the next night, after the workshop was over, I was driving back to Dallas, and I received what's called the knock of the spirit. And this voice came in, just clear as a bell, and it said, you have found that which you are searching for. One, I wasn't searching for anything, but two, it was absolutely dead-on truth. It was so dead-on truth that I just started crying, and I cried all the way home. And I walked into my apartment, and my girlfriend at the time, who thought I was off to join a cult, sees me crying. She's like, oh my God, what's wrong? And I went, absolutely nothing. I said, now looking back, I realized I'd hit that space called the I am.
Capital I am.
And there was just a total perfection. And I knew at that moment that this is what the world needs. This is it. This is the medicine the world needs. And then I thought, okay, well, there must be a reason for me receiving this message. And so that's what kind of kicked me into gear about changing my life, which it most definitely changed. I still do real estate, but...
Driven by different motive.
Which is, I think once you figure out what your soul destiny is, that is becomes so strong that nothing else can challenge it and overcome it. It's just, and it's different for everybody.
Well, what's wonderful about speaking with you is I think you're one of the first people that I've spoken to, and I had a feeling this was your story, which was what intrigued me so, is that what I find in common with so many people is that they have had either an out-of-body experience. It's interesting you say it's in the car, because that's kind of where mine came to. Lots of time traveling or in water, it'll hit one, but I find that most people have to have, like you said, a lose everything, or I like to sometimes refer to it as a bitch slap from God.
Yeah.
It's just like, oh, well, I have nothing. So that it's like taking off the clothes before you go in the lodge.
Yeah.
I got nothing.
Yeah.
So for many people, it needs to be taken away.
Right.
Through some decisions that they've made, or some outer event.
Right.
And yet it's this beautiful thing, but the dark night of the soul. It sounds like you didn't really have to go through a particular dark night of the soul related to this.
No, I've been going through the dark night of the soul for the last 15 years.
Right.
It just
so
it
you
keeps
were nice
regurgitating itself. Yeah, I mean
it's almost like
well, you hit one level and then you're like, okay, well, you got to go through another passage here, and it's passages. You go through different passages. That's kind of when I started getting a sticking point with some people when they kind of feel like they've achieved this really superior level. They haven't. They've achieved a level. And there's
with
more,
respect to spirituality. Are you speaking? Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And there's more levels to allow yourself to experience, because the Creator is constantly evolving, constantly expanding. Why would you be any different?
Right.
And so it's an ongoing process that never ends.
It's like I picture it like a slinky. Oh, I got that life lesson learned. Now,
it is.
The human part wants like the XY axis and the line is going straight up with no, like, oh, I have evolved.
Yeah, I think,
yeah. So it's really, you come back to the same lesson in a different form at a higher level, right? Does that feel like what it was?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're dead on, and but you have to give yourself permission to do that. Willingness, absolutely. Because I was talking to some people last night, and they were talking about not being able to get past certain things. I said, well, you just need to give yourself permission. Mm-hmm. You're not doing that.
Right. All you have to do is be willing.
Right.
You get all the stuff up here, which will implode on itself if you don't move.
Right.
Right. So how willing are you to be open? And that, it sounds like, I don't want to go into this lodge, but I'm going to do it. So that's it's such a beautiful quality that, again, one of the things that I think differentiates people who will have an awakening experience and one who won't. It's to the extent that the beliefs need to be hung on to.
Right.
So what's beautiful about your story so far is you had it all. So it wasn't like a desperation, foxhole experience. It was just beautifully...
I was like, well, wow, this is what truth feels like, huh? That's interesting.
Can you identify what it was at all in words, which may not be possible, of what was the sweating coming out and then the drive home? What shifted inside you? Can you identify where in your body? Is it like, oh, my mind just figured something out? Is it like everything seems to make sense at the solar plexus level?
Well, no, actually, the thing about Castaneda, you ever read any Castaneda's books? Okay. Mm-hmm. Well, the thing what Castaneda was doing is he was experiencing all these things in fifth dimension. And he was writing about his experience in fifth dimension. Like my teacher says, he's the only person he's ever seen that came into a peyote ceremony and tried to take notes.
I would do that. I would look at me. Yeah, I would do that. That's something I would do.
So he was writing all the stuff down. Well, everybody was reading it from the perspective of third dimension and thinking, well, this is crazy. I mean, he's talking about mountains, floating in the air and this and that,
So easily discredited due to
because
a lack of understanding of
that. I mean, if your only experience is in third dimension, it's difficult to understand what could happen in fifth dimension or what that's about. Now, Sweat Lodge puts you into fifth dimension.
Right.
So all of a sudden you're experiencing what that perfection is about. And it's much more perfection in fifth dimension than it is in third dimension.
Hallelujah.
So once you experience that, in Sweat Lodges, initially when you go into sweats, it's extremely uncomfortable, and it's dark and I can't breathe and I'm going to die and
Right, the mind will try to
it's just
fight back.
Trying to survival thing.
Go.
Yeah, get into survival trip.
Yeah.
And then usually by the third or fourth sweat lodge, the people are, my students are like, all right, when's the next sweat? I mean, they thrive on that because their body has moved from being totally anchored in third dimension into allowing itself, giving themselves permission to experience fifth dimension.
Exactly. So once you've had that experience, you know how to find it again.
Yes, and it's comfortable. You're not afraid.
It's more comfortable than real life.
Absolutely. Well,
when I came
third
back
dimension,
from my Sundance, the first one that I actually danced in, it was like the whole following couple weeks I thought, I can live in that world.
Right.
I'm just not sure I can live in this world.
And
back when Castaneda wrote, there wasn't really much talk about different dimensions in living.
No, he really didn't know exactly what he was doing.
Yeah.
His teachers wanted it that way. They wanted him to write it just exactly the way he wrote it, primarily because it was appealing to all of the 60s hippies.
Right.
We were all reading that going, well, it really sounds far out, not knowing how far out it really was.
Yeah.
And so, for a lot of us to transcend out of that, drug culture experiment into wait a minute, we can do this naturally. Yeah. And so, people are amazed when they talk to me. They go, well, you don't do like peyote or ayahuasca or anything? I go, no, I don't.
Right.
I don't need it.
Right. Right. And I learned that a little bit from the Sundancing and what they teach you as you go through.
Yeah, Sundance is big time fifth dimension experience.
Holy cow.
Yeah, I've done 22 of them. Yeah.
Yes.
So it's my favorite ceremony.
Yeah, isn't it beautiful?
Oh.
Changed my life. And
Yeah.
When did this happen? This shift, this drive home from this thing? You said, I think you mentioned the year.
Well, I was 39. I would say it was 1986 is
Okay.
when I started
In Texas.
Yeah.
I'm thinking not a whole lot of people are like, oh.
No, it was. I mean, it was.
Look what he's doing. That's cool.
It was so out of left field. I mean, you couldn't make this up. I mean, it really was. And I guess the other thing that appealed to me is the teacher who I became an apprentice of. He was from Texas also.
Oh.
One of my homies,
Right.
And so
knows the environment, knows.
Yeah, well, we
the culture.
we gelled because we were so much alike. I mean, I just immediately we just kind of went wow. So I mean, it was just after I came down, like you're talking about when you evolve out of Sundance and back into the real world, I came back and I was like, okay, well, what was that? What just happened? It was enough to made me decide, I'm going to check out this out a little bit further. But I was still back in my rational mind, so I was still like,
the left brain was...
if I want to get caught up in some cult or something, I don't know who these people are, and yada, 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 going through all the rationalizations. But I said, they were doing a 2-week vision quest through the Southwest. So I thought, well, I'll go do that, So I did. I flew out to Phoenix and, went on this vision quest.
People?
Yeah, with the same people. And we went all through the Southwest, camped different places, did ceremony all over the place. And that kind of gelled.
That was it, yeah.
Yeah. I was like, wow, this Castaneda guy was really onto something here. Because
Wow.
I was experiencing fifth dimension.
Totally lucid.
Yeah, out in the desert, on top of a mesa, spending all night communing with the stars and the spirits.
And there's something about that area, I don't know how but it's just like this energy just comes forth.
Oh, yeah. Fifth dimension,
through
you hardly ever get tired.
You're not tired.
No.
Yeah. So I'm curious. So now you've done this and you go back to your life. Did you experience some interesting dynamics with respect to, did you attempt to explain your experience to people close to you? Did they notice differences about you? Did you get any flack?
They scattered for me like fleas.
I'm like waiting for a little bit.
Like really? They were like
scatter like
running
fleas.
for your life, and which was really interesting because.
Did you anticipate it?
No,
no,
I didn't really. I
didn't know it was coming.
Yeah, I had no clue, But everybody just he's gone. He's in a cult, But interestingly enough, a year or two later, most of those same people started coming to me for healings. Because they observed me.
They watched.
Yeah, and they were like, oh, okay, well.
But we thought he was crazy at first.
Yeah,
and the
girl I was involved with at the time, she said the same thing. She said, okay, I still think you're nuts, but I see the change. I get it, She said, okay, so I'll do a sweat. And so then she started getting into it, and she started saying, well, this isn't so bad. And I'm like, no, it's not. And, so I had more and more people that, but yeah, initially everybody just went, man.
Right, but there's an initial, everybody clears, and then I like to think of it as nature abhors a vacuum.
Yeah.
So if all these people clear, was it painful?
No.
When they did? Okay.
No.
Yeah. So you were kind of like 0 F's to give at that point. It's like, if you're going to leave, you're going to leave. For some people, that process is really painful, and what keeps them from speaking their truth or having willingness to seek is like that really core primal, I'll be abandoned. You know, if I talk this way, if I act this way. So props for doing that within. What's so fascinating is that you've got feet in both places.
Right. Yeah.
Which is really...
Well, I looked at myself as a bridger really from the beginning, you know, and I had this talk with a lady last night, actually, who's a lawyer, you know, and I was explaining to her, I said, you don't have to not be a lawyer.
Right.
You know, this is just an add-to situation. You know, I said, there's an aspect of yourself that you need to give permission to allow it to come out, you know, and stop thinking that you can't do all this. Everyone
because
can
of
do
your
all
designation as a lawyer or a whatever.
Yeah, like you said, brand. Everybody brands themselves something, and they think, well, that's
me.
And it's working for me, so I'm not going to, you know, But
you touched it. You said the I am with capital letters.
Yeah, once you hit that space.
Right.
I went to a seminar one time with J.J. Hurtak, who wrote the Keys of Enoch, and I was listening to some of the people, and this one guy, and he kept talking about the I am, you know, and so I went to him later, and I said, can you explain to me what the I am is? And he said, oh yeah, and he started going off, and you know, and I knew immediately, and he had no idea what it was, because there are no words for it.
Right.
There are no words to describe it, you know. And the only person, if I ever ask somebody that question, they say, I don't have any words to describe it. I go, okay, well, you got it. You were there. You can't, there's no words to describe it.
The experience.
Yeah, because it's
it's
perfection. It's beyond words.
Words are clumsy.
Yeah.
And this is the challenge, and it's a fun challenge, but to attempt to take experiences like this and put words to them that can even come close. And I remember learning about that I am from someone who was into anthroposophical medicine, Rudolf Steiner.
Right.
So he years ago was one of the first people, you know, in the white world to talk about that there's mind, body, spirit connection, and also soul.
Right.
So any kind of healing related to that has that, and that's where I first heard. So the person working with me said, there is this thing called I am, and the best way how I remember it and conceptualize it is what you are before you came into this vessel,
right,
and what will exist after you know.
Right.
It's the truth of your essence as a spiritual being
at the original moment of birth.
At the original moment of birth.
Right. You know,
will be at death.
At the completion. Yeah, that's it. I agree with that 100%. That another tradition I'm familiar with, they call it the original signature. So at the moment of the birth of that soul, as the Creator births this soul, it receives a signature that's an original signature. Okay, and what that is a description of the destiny of this particular soul. Okay, and so from that moment of original birth, the journey is to continue on through these different levels of reconnecting into the soul's knowing of itself to achieve that place to where you start seeing who you really are and what you can
remember.
Do. Yes, you remember. And once you start remembering, each time you remember, you get that feeling, that truth, that I am feeling, you know, and you're like, wow, that's just awesome.
Right.
So
right. That's the part that's indescribable.
Yeah, but you can't. You're like, man, I got to have more of this. What I need to do, you know. I mean, it's yeah, you know, it's. I don't want to, you know, belittle it by calling it an addiction, but it's something that just absolutely attaches.
A fire in your belly.
It's a fire.
That's what I call it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. To not pathologize it, because I think that's the mistake.
Yeah. Or the healing in your heart.
The healing in your heart. The coming together.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And the remembering. So, what do you think about this? One time someone said to me, and I'll say it the same way, and I've said it with clients, just think of it as a possible story. I mean, there's no proof. Okay, but just try this on for size. What if you actually picked? Okay, so you're in another realm, and before you're born, you have to sit in front of a boardroom of people, and you have to say, okay, I want to go back down. And in order to go down, I want to go down in this time of history, born in this geographical location, with certain skills and also certain things to overcome within myself, and then pick my parents. It's just a shift in perspective. Did you come in and you're going to sit in therapy and complain about being a victim, or did you pick it? Do you have any sense about when we talk about the I am?
Absolutely.
What's your
well, in my teachings, the soul is composed of 9 spirit personalities. Okay, so as we sit here in this interview, these are 2 spirit personalities remembering together. That's what we're doing. You got 8 other spirit personalities who are out there in the spirit realm.
Are they in multiverses, like different universes?
Well, it depends on how evolved you are as a soul. You know, I mean, you can also have more than one spirit personality in the physical, but you have to be a very highly evolved soul to be able to hold that space. Okay,
in one container.
Yeah, you have to be an Abraham or a, somebody,
Jesus.
Jesus or somebody who can hold multiple physical places simultaneously.
Interesting.
Okay.
Have you met someone that can do that?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, they're few and far between, but it has happened numerous occasions now through history. But so to answer your question, I mean, when this spirit personality, before it came into birth, sat down with the other spirit personalities and said, all right, what do we need to do to get the soul thing going on? And so you in counsel, you talk about this. Well, and we got this karma, and we need to shift that into dharma, and boom, boom,
That's
boom,
like a
boom,
business strategy planning session for how you're going to be born.
Absolutely.
And then you're born, you forget.
That's absolutely. And you got to remember.
And then you got to remember.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah. So, the people who like you said, are victims, they're victim because they've chosen to get off track.
And they've heard the story.
Yeah, they know the story. I mean,
they've heard the story, and this story is reinforced by the mental health profession.
Right.
Oh, you're suffering from blah, blah, blah. I mean, what you're talking about, these 2 souls in a person, could be someone called schizophrenic in a different definition. So
2 spirit personalities.
2 spirit personalities.
Yeah.
And I don't know how that shows up, but I think that, for many on these kind of journeys, and part of my quest is to tell these stories so that people can know this is not pathology. You are not breaking down. In fact, breaking down may be the closest you get to come to the I am in this lifetime. And instead of throwing drugs and distraction on that, let's have stories of people who know that this is not.
Well, they need to purify. They need to purify. That's the problem. Is it's once people go into an unbalanced situation because of not being pure, then they just start compounding the problem by putting stuff on top of stuff on top of stuff. It just gets worse and worse and worse. Instead of, if you're truly in a purified position, you ought to be able to go out and sit in the forest and talk to a tree and let the tree tell you what the problem is. Which I have done, and it's a separation that we've created with nature, and then tried to fill that vacuum with all kinds of other mental stuff. It's causing big problems.
Yes,
now, I mean,
huge problems.
There's compounding external things that also compounds that. I mean, the battle between good and evil has been going on way before this planet was even here, So, we have to be cognitively aware that we are players in that game, and we have to make decisions relating to that.
Right, and that seems so basic to you and I sitting here, but most of the world doesn't know that.
No, they're clueless. Clueless.
And so this is what we got to get out there.
Yeah.
It's not that complicated. It's like you have free will.
Right.
Every choice matters.
And every choice matters. With your words, your thoughts, your deeds, whoever you are, everything you do has impact.
Cause and effect.
Absolutely.
And your life will become what it'll become based on those choices. And then the myriads of people that You know the stories. Like, we won't even belabor like how unfair things are, and I've certainly been in that state of consciousness in the past, like universal law.
Yeah.
Just what the intercessor of my first Sundance just looked at me right at the beginning. He said, "Kestrel, this is quantum mechanics. I think you're going to understand every bit of what I'm going to say to you." And I just smiled and knew I would.
Well, my elders always address it like it. They'd go, even some of the great ones would get mad. some of the great ones would even get angry. And in other words,
tell me more.
Well, we tend to have an inflated expectation around the spirit world with teachers, etc. We put them up on this pedestal,
right? And they're easier to knock down.
Yeah, but and they're, look, they're human beings. They're human beings, have a little more knowledge than we have, and we'd like to have that knowledge. That's pretty much it.
So they've got to keep humble.
They have to be humble, and they have to keep other people humble through their example. That's why I maintain a foot in two worlds. I want to be a real estate broker, and I want to be a medicine person, and I don't see the conflict. Other people do. Somebody, told Colleen, my girlfriend now, she said, he can't possibly be a shaman. He drives a big old F-250 truck, and I thought, dear God, what does that have to do with anything? Yeah.
Right. Well, that goes back, there's the starving artist. That stuff is so powerful, repeated over time, and so do you need to be an artist and starve?
Right.
If you say so.
Right. That's true. You're right.
If you
You're
say
right.
so. So, yeah.
Yeah.
So we're moving from this fifth dimension where there's like boxes and opportunities and science so arrogantly, up to very recently, with the scientific method that's only been around 400 years and uses statistics. But this is how we're going to tell you what truth is. Well, science has been going on since, like you said, good and evil, before we even got here.
Right.
And astronomy was science, and watching nature was science, and watching the behaviors of people and the responses to and alchemy. And I mean, science has been around for so long, but we don't hear about that science anymore. So again, part of the motivation, like you woke up with, okay, here's my purpose. Well, I had to be told over 5 years, 10 years, why aren't you on the radio? Why aren't you talking about these things? Why aren't you asking people these questions? That's the directive.
That's the important part of this is that, the word that you're getting out is going to assist others in being able to give themselves permission. Because, as we move out of the fourth world into the fifth world, which is what we're doing right now, that being according to the Hopi prophecies, we're moving out of reliance on institutional thinking and into individual thinking. Okay, and so it's going to become more and more and more pertinent that each individual define, manifest, and sustain their own spirituality.
What do you see as kind of transpiring, let's say in the last year? For example, I've had this feeling that there's, the duality that exists within each of us and within people. I see it almost happening. Some of us walking in the way of doing this work that can feel like a very narrow portal sometimes. It's not the easiest path. It's the road less traveled, so to speak, but it's becoming a little more traveled, where people are at least attempting to go in that direction. And then I'm seeing other things that are like disturbing on the other end. Do you see an actual separation when you look out at individuals? Can you see like, ooh, they're not gonna activate, they're not gonna wake up, they're too entrenched, and that's getting darker and the light is getting lighter?
No, I see it. I see that what you're saying going on, but that's not the way I interpret it.
Okay, tell me your...
All right, the way I interpret it is essentially, most of nature's changes comes through chaos. Okay, so there's chaotic situation on the planet right now. There's no doubt about it, from all kinds of directions. But as my elders describe it, this is the fever before it breaks. Okay, so this is all kind of going on simultaneously because here's what's happening. The earth is healing. Okay, the earth has got to heal first before we can. The atmosphere has got to change.
How do you think that's going to transpire?
Well, it's transpiring right now. I know exactly how it's going to transpire.
Do you know what forces? Or you just, you know it, but...
Yeah, you know, it's like
that.
It's just,
my
intuition tells me that's what's happening.
Yes.
And so as things change, these forces that are changing, the old guard is trying to hold on to their turf, like I said. And so they're entrenching into this sort of fundamentalist modality, because they're actually afraid of consciousness.
Yes.
It scares them, and so you've got the fear of consciousness, but then you've also got the consciousness of fear. Okay, and those who are facilitators of the consciousness of fear, which has been going on for a long time.
Since Egypt.
Yeah, that's exactly right, and that's a way of control of the people. But all of a sudden, it's now getting to the point where people are going, wait a minute, something ain't right here,
right.
And
people
so
feeling this disease, but not necessarily knowing why.
Yes.
But potentially, if they aren't exposed to our stories,
right,
it would be very lonely. I mean, I know it was lonely for me to kind of have these senses about me, and look at an environment where I wouldn't have been able to speak a word about it.
Well, and if you go, if you look around the world, it's amazing how far we've come in like 50 years. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, we used to be blowing up atom bombs on the planet just to see what would happen. Now you could go into any, town in Mexico and get a massage, because there's people, consciousness is starting to raise its head up all over the place. It's just, when I get down and out, I start thinking, man, reality is that we've come a long way in a very short period of time.
Thank you for that reminder.
Yeah.
You're right. I
mean, it's phenomenal.
Yeah, in our lifetime.
Oh, yeah. I mean, people like you and I are sun dancing. I mean, come on.
Right.
That's insane.
Right. Well, and that we were found.
Yes.
We didn't go looking. No. They come to you.
Yeah.
You belong here. You understand you belong here.
That's right. I totally got tricked into it. It was a hayoko all from the beginning.
You were, or a hayoko was?
Well, I usually had a hayoko as a way of describing. Yeah, I am a hayoko.
Yeah,
also.
I'm thinking.
Yeah. I did do
Talk
that a
about
lot.
Yeah. I can so see that's
and totally enjoy it.
Yeah. Well, when I drove up with my two girlfriends to the Sundance, somebody just yelled out, "The hayoko are here!" And we all looked at each other like. And we can speak to it just for a minute for people that don't know it, because I think that's what comedians do. Really good comedians. Like I think of Louis C.K. He'll just poke holes and stuff with no reverence, but it's but it's heart stuff. He's not just being an AH, complaining about the world. He's like complaining about, look at how messed up I am. Right. And then his message will come out to something that you can take away.
Yeah.
So that's like.
That's one of the pieces that I think that the United States as a country gives to the world is our ability to laugh at ourselves. We have that so much more than most other countries.
Oh, we do? Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, there's the freedom that we've enjoyed has allowed us to really be able to express ourselves in a fuller context than most other people, and that's, and which leads to this separation you're talking about, but in fact, what it is, it's at the end of the day, it's freedom.
Right.
It's the willingness and the ability to be able to express ourselves and have that be received by other people, whether they want to believe in it or not.
Right.
But to be able to allow us to be able to have this conversation we're having right here, this is phenomenal. I mean, it is.
And I've always dreamed since I was a little girl that this would happen in my lifetime.
Yeah, I think you're perfect for it. I mean, you really have a knack for being able to get people to. I mean, people are drawn to you. Like I was watching last night. Everybody's like, "Well, I got to talk to you." Yeah, well, you're a communicator. And so and that's a gift. I mean, there's a real joy in that ability, and not just in how you can express yourself, but how others can express themselves to you. And then, when that connects, like we're doing now, and it starts, becomes something that both of us don't have any control over.
Right. And I like that part.
Yes,
and it's so fun. Some
absolutely.
people I met interviewed like, well, I want to cut that part out because I had no idea I even felt that. And my response to them was like, oh, I certainly hope you consider, because when I asked you that question, you didn't have the answer, and you spoke. That was the first time I really saw who you were.
There you go.
And I think that if other people could see that authentic part,
right.
But it's so funny, they want to take it out. I'm like, no, that's the joy.
Right.
Because you didn't know, you weren't in control,
right.
And it was beautiful,
right.
And that's why you have a person.
Yeah.
So,
well, and you know what? You asked me a kind of earlier question about that in terms of the splitting apart and stuff, and I'm really seeing what you're describing going on more and more on a really intense level.
Yes. Okay. Tell me really, what it looks like from your eyes.
Well, running into James and Julie for starters, we just kind of boom,
right.
and now it's the same thing. We're kind of like, God, I feel like we've known each other forever, and this is happening with other people, and it hasn't been like that for the past few years. This has only been.
So you noticed that too.
Yeah, like within the last 12 months. Right. I mean, it's just picked up
exponentially.
Yes, absolutely.
Everyone's finding their tribe.
Yeah, it's just, and the people who need to be together to create these matrices of communication are starting to find one another.
Find each other.
Yeah, it's a trip,
Oh, such good news.
Yeah. And it's
because that's what I feel intuitively, but to talk to somebody that's out there.
Yeah, I mean, I've been seeing this with my own eyes, thinking this is really interesting, because I watch, I watch intently around me for what's going on, to see where Spirit wants me to go and what Spirit wants me to do, and that's what I follow. I follow the signs. I'm kind of, and so as
the crumbs,
that's if something comes up or catches my attention. Well, if something catches my attention, there's a reason for it.
Exactly, and you trust it now more
than
maybe you did before,
right?
Right?
Absolutely.
Because once you know that I am and the intuition, it's like,
right.
I'm going to learn it I'm not going to wait to be pissed off by God to get this lesson. It's like, I'm awake now, God. I'm conscious. I apologize for the times I have not been, which is kind of how the Lakota taught me to pray.
Yeah.
That's all you do. It's not in supplication like Catholicism. It's like, my apologies for the times I have not been conscious. I am conscious now and open to receive everything. And thank you for A, B, C, D, and E. And A, B, C, and D, and E are maybe things that you feel are what is to be manifested as your role doing God's will. But you're scared. You don't know if you can do it. You don't have the money. You've got self-doubt. And they're like, thank it as if it's already occurred. And you say, thank you for giving me the courage to be able to actually do your will, even though from this point I may doubt. I will work for my faith.
Right.
And thank you in advance.
Right.
And I've had so many people like, you know what? It works.
Right.
It happened in my life. I Sundanced years ago, did this. Everything. It has come. God will give you what you need, but not necessarily what you want. And He's not going to give it to you in the way that you expect. So we've learned this kind of, maybe it is part of the fifth dimension, but a way of following the crumbs and trusting the truth of who we are, not who we've been told, and the belief.
Right. Yeah, you're, and I think that's going to pick up a lot.
Good.
I think it's going to intensify.
Good.
I mean, God's presence on this planet over the next few years, and I say a few years, I don't know how many years that is, but because I don't know what the timetable is, but it's going to become more palatable.
Right.
I mean, it's going to become
vibrationally.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to become like there's like, okay. I tell you, it was funny. I was thinking earlier you were talking about different places where you hit the I am, and you were talking about different locations. Ironically, for me, a couple of times it's happened in the grocery store.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I mean, I'm like,
isn't it funny?
I was standing in line. This happened twice. Really, I was standing in line waiting to check out, and all of a sudden, and I know that it must have been the elders going, "Hey, let's have some fun. Stronghorse is in the grocery store," because I just felt this gold light around me, and it's like God's presence was everywhere, and it was just radiating everywhere. And I'm standing there holding my bag of celery and my apples, and not asking for this or anything. It just came on, and it was so intense that everybody around me stopped. It's like time stopped, and they all stared at me, and I didn't know. I was like, yeah, apparently something's going on. and
I don't know if you see a gold orb around me, but
Merry
Christmas.
They didn't know how to relate to it. It's like they knew God was in the area, but they didn't know how to relate to it because there was no points of reference. So we all just stared at each other in the grocery store, and we all just stared at each other until
what do we feel?
Until it went away. And everybody kind of went, "Okay, that was weird."
Oh, Frank, that's beautiful.
Yeah, it was gorgeous. But the point being is that this is going to happen more and more. Right.
And we need to give people context so they don't feel like they're crazy. That's my concern.
Absolutely. They
oh my God, I'm seeing things,
you
blah,
need
blah,
that
blah.
point of reference that, hey, you know what? This is okay. Mm-hmm. This is happening because it's supposed to happen. Mm-hmm. Don't need to be scared. Mm-hmm. You don't have to make a big deal out of it. When it went away, I just paid for my celery and apples and went on out the door and didn't.
And that was it.
That was it.
Right. I was given that advice by a very respected healer. He said, when those things happen, because when it first started happening and kicking in, I was like, oh my goodness, the world has become magic. And he said, you know what? Something, and you're right, and something like that happens, and your reaction, ho-hum.
Yeah.
So part of your reaction is, oh my goodness, I recognize the beautiful synchronicity, and there is no actions, and that was pretty spectacular. And at the same time, say ho-hum.
Yeah.
Because that's when you talk about keeping yourself pure. I think it's a whole nother show I'd love to be able to talk with you about because it's so important.
Yeah.
But I think that message was one of the ways for him to say to me, like when people first start getting whatever, like, ooh, look at me. I'm, they could take their ego with it. And like, I have these, I'm an empath. Well, everyone's an empath, but the labels, I'm an intuitive.
Right.
Even the word shaman, they explain to me, they don't
right.
call us shaman. I'm an intercessor.
You're a human being.
I'm an intercessor at this dance between but yeah, the ones that are pure, it seems to me, are the ones who don't want the designation.
Right. They're just holding a space.
They're holding a space.
That's all they're doing.
Yeah.
Ram Dass said, when you first get the spirit world on the phone, hang up.
Oh, I love it.
Isn't that great?
God, he's got some good ones.
Yeah, he is.
Oh, I have not heard that one.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Hang up and go. I think the thing that's sticking with me that I'd like to ask is about the purity piece. Mm-hmm. How did you kind of figure that out? How do you see people maintaining it? How do you see people losing the purity? Because I'm convinced that, and I pray that I keep that in consciousness daily. Whatever the outcome of anything that I do, detach as much from the outcome. My goal is to be pure in whatever presentation.
Right.
Okay.
Well, I think the key is that, and where people get hung up on that is a lot of times when we're looking at something that's going to create a loss for us, we only see it as a loss. Mm-hmm. We don't see it in terms of, well, there may be a gain.
It's making room for the right thing to come.
Yes. And so, we need to look at things that that occur in the purification process where we're experiencing a loss, mm-hmm. but we're doing it at knowing there's going to be a gain in that. Like you asked me, you said, well, when you first started on a path, what happened with all the people around you? I said, well, they scattered like fleas, Well, that was a huge loss. But I had experienced that IM, which was so intense that I went, well, I'll settle for the lost because I know I got to get to this gain.
That's really unique. I don't think there's many people that have the knowledge enough through the lost time.
I was lucky.
Yeah.
I was really lucky, and I was tricked. I mean, it was, and so, I was, they kind of dangled the carrot out in front of me and went, okay, Mr. Stronghorse, buddy, what are you going to do now? And I said, the carrot looks pretty good. Where do we go?
I'd follow it.
Yeah. So the purification thing, for me, the vehicle is the sweat lodge, and I mean that for me, that's the easiest, most greatest facilitator to becoming pure. Okay.
Wow. Okay.
But that being said, like I live in Texas, so we're on a 24/7 drought, so having a sweat in Texas is very difficult to try to achieve. So I don't really get to sweat as much as I used to. But on a normal for the normal person who can't do sweat lodges that wants to experience purification, certainly diet is a vital part of
cleaning
that.
Yourself.
Yeah, cleaning your habits up. You just have to go over. You have to sit down and you have to take an inventory of your habits. Okay, what habits do I have that are not good for me? And you don't have to. For me, it's television. I'm an addict on television.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. And I know that I'm an addict on television.
Hey, as long as you're conscious,
yes,
that you're choosing to go unconscious
That's right.
is a whole different deal than just being unconscious.
That's right.
So kudos.
So I understand that. So I've got that's at the top of my list.
Right.
And
to watch out for.
Yeah.
Like allow myself to it, but be conscious.
And become disciplined in my exercise routine. Back off, some of the rich foods and stuff. So I've got. You just have to take an inventory of your habits and say, okay, well, what is it that I need to start cutting out? So that
isn't serving.
Yeah,
I am.
But what's the gain? What's my gain? You got to stay focused on that, because if you just look at it in terms of a loss, just people can't get motivated on a pure loss scenario. They have to have some understanding of what the gain is.
And you do. And I don't think most people do. So what most people are relegated to is faith.
Faith?
Yeah, just plain faith. Like, I'm going at this on faith. You seem to have a little more than that. Like, it's almost like you already know it's going to be okay.
Yeah, but you have to, even faith has to produce something occasionally.
Right.
So
there
has
can
to
be discouraging.
Yeah.
Like, I'm having faith, I'm doing what's been directed, and what?
Yeah. And that's going to produce diminishing returns.
Right.
So
have you had that happen and gone like dark, like you forget what you learned?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Really?
Yeah. Everybody gets into their ruts.
Right.
Again, you just have to stop and refocus. All right, what's going to be my gain? And it doesn't necessarily have to be short term. That's the other thing, particularly in America, we're all so into instant gratification, that we think, well, okay, I'll give this a go for the next 3 weeks. Well, that ain't it. It's got to be, you need to put a 3-month, 6-month, you need to have a, 1-year program, to allow yourself to be able to shift and change. It takes 21 days to change any pattern, right,
yep.
Right.
Or it might be 21.
Yeah. So, you have to have that kind of short and long-term outlook on it.
Oh, I love it. Also, again, getting back to purity, so say you make that year-long, I'm going to commit to this for a year.
Here's the thing that's important for everybody to understand. We're moving into a new phase on this planet. And that phase is going to include a shift in the DNA of the human being. And as that DNA shifts, people are going to become more motivated and sustained in a spiritual way than ever before. Okay, and it's going to be,
so that gift is going to make itself known
yes,
to more
it's
people.
going to be all over the place,
Right.
man. It's
Okay,
it's going to paint the room, you know. And so as that continues to occur,
and people see it,
start feeling it, start hearing it. That purification process, all of a sudden, okay, well, this maybe I need to step into this, you know. The people who aren't willing to step into the purification process, as any biological system will show you, will eventually disappear. You know, you either have to adapt. And become or diminish.
Ejected.
That's exactly correct. And so, you know,
the meek shall inherit.
That's exactly correct. You know, the darkness is going to slide away, the light's going to keep coming on, and if you're not willing to step into that and be comfortable in that space, you're going to have some problems.
Yes.
You know, and everybody's a creature of free will, so, you know, you can choose to take off, or you can choose to adapt, but you're going to have to make a choice.
Right.
Absolutely. There's not going to be any more gray area, man. You're not going to just be able to slide through, you know. And so these conversations we're having on this radio program is really important because people need to hear this. You know, they need to say, okay, well, there's people out there that are, just like you said, you opened my book and you said, God, it sounded like I was talking to myself, you know. Well, that's remembering. You know, there's no words in there of any magic other than, hey, here's kind of what I sense, and we're all the same soul beings. We're all the same angelic essences. We're all really looking for the same thing on this planet.
So do you think when this thing we're talking about, these soul, you know, it's not an accident that you and I are here now. It's not an accident you met James, not an accident that I met James. Do you think that when that happens, someone is, quote unquote, activated? Do you think that people, upon meeting people,
yeah, you go the basic 100 monkey syndrome. You know, if you
and you don't even know that you're doing it necessarily, or sometimes you do. It's a mutual activation, and you look at each other and go like, "Whoa!"
Yeah, that's
that's happening.
Yeah,
more,
yeah. Those happenstances are going to become standard procedure.
Standard procedure. I love it.
You know, and more people, they're going to find themselves in situations where people are seeking the knowledge that they have, you know, and they may not even be aware that they have that knowledge. But when people start asking them, they'll go,
"Isn't that beautiful?
Wow, it's amazing." It's like sometimes I read my writing and I think, "Really, I wrote that?"
Yeah. Well, and sometimes doing therapy and writing, it's as if I would have to say that the person would be looking at me like, "Oh my God, that's it, you got it." And I'm like, remind me what I said. Right. You get in such a pure flow state, and it's not attached. It's like, I can't tell you where this is coming from, but it's very clear. So I'm just going to share it to you. Do with it what you will.
So imagine that on a massive scale.
Right.
Imagine on a massive scale where that's just people are fed by knowledge. Because at the end of the day, we can take all this away. At the end of the day, all of us are only one very simple thing. We're all human beings doing the best we can.
Perfectly imperfect. Created that way purposely.
But suffering from a lack of knowledge.
Right.
Okay?
That has been withheld.
Yes. You know, the ancients had it.
Yeah. We went all left brain and tried to just squash it all out.
Yeah. You know, so now it's returning.
It's returning.
You know, and people are remembering. And as that increases, more and more people are going to find themselves in conversations where they're going, yeah, you know, I never really thought myself that I'd be having this conversation. But you are.
I've had friends very different from me, and then I would say my stuff, and boy, a year ago I would have heard you talk like that and been like, hello, and just walked the other way.
And the key being word heard.
Yeah.
Because they heard you. And that's going to increase hugely.
Yeah. So I'm not too late, and this is the right time for us to be doing this.
No, absolutely. You know, it's I mean, the audience is just going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. There's no doubt about it.
What I'm hearing from you is that the linear time of like cause and effect, it's almost like it seems to be shortening. It's like as you live this,
absolutely.
your feedback system is happening much more quickly, and you don't get roused or freaked out when you have a bubble of stuff around you in a grocery store and you leave. It's like,
Right.
Like,
well, they people call that the quickening, or they call it instant karma, or they call it just a manifestation of thought. This is going to increase dramatically. And so, which means you're also going to have to be more responsible, accountable for what you think.
Exactly. I'm so glad you said that.
Yeah, because
with this comes such responsibility.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Maybe that's why a lot of people avoid it, because this is like you can't. Well, you can, but see, this is where we might get into trouble.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, self-proclaimed guru. I just got a little knowledge. I think I know everything, but they're not pure yet.
That's exactly right. And so they come out and then they go, oh, wow, you can get the good with the bad with this, huh?
So one of the things I've learned this past year that I think, and it was a rough process, and I think it prepared me, which is another thing you do, right? When you start to kind of wake up as you see how, yes, I went through this thing, but it prepared me for this. And one of the key lessons, discernment.
Right.
Especially at this level.
Right.
I've heard stories, you probably have too, about people who wind up studying with somebody who's not, there is a cultish element.
Right.
Meaning that the person who's leading it is not...
And a personal power.
Yes. Yeah, an ego.
Right.
How has your experience been with that? In terms of the sun dancing, which sounds like your main, sweating and sun dancing sounds like your main, that's your path.
Yeah.
Towards remaining pure and
healing. I've run into that a lot. But essentially what it is it's just another form of racism, and racism is really nothing more than an attempt to keep
divide.
us separate. Yes, because if we can only see each other from the color of our skin, then and we're not focusing any deeper in that in terms of
and my
that
story
person
about that color of skin.
That's a human being. That's a human being doing the best they can at this particular time. That's all they're doing. Why do I need to get down on them? They're doing the best they can. They can get down on me just as easy.
Right.
So, but we're human beings trying to learn how to connect with one another. End of story.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, because I think at the level there, judgment needs to go.
Yeah.
That's one of the things, if you're going to be on that journey, judgment of self and judgment of others there's something about that has to loosen.
Yeah, because that's instant karma, man. You're as long as you start going into that judgment, comparisons, dependency, all these different dark arrow things, it's going to come back on you big time.
And they'll be like,
yeah, you're exactly right. I mean, the timing is impeccable, because...
that makes me so happy. Thank you for saying that, because there's the little voice that says, oh, you waited too long.
No.
Because I've had the idea for, 15 years.
No. It's,
everything happens. And
that's where your faith comes into play,
That's why I keep bringing up faith, darn it.
That's right.
But I'm learning, because I like this. I'm like, if, yes, use faith, but attach... Make sure, I like your way, it's probably your business sense too, of attaching hey, look where you were just a little while ago and where you are now. And that was a journey, yet you're here.
Yeah.
But
here's also the other thing. If you're in service, the spirit world will assist you. Period. If you're not in service, you're in it for personal power, it's going to kick back on you. It's just about being at service to help other human beings
versus service to others.
Yeah.
This is the time. That's one of those dualities.
Absolutely. And it's going to become, more and more important and more pertinent in people's lives.
Which side are you on?
Yeah, which side are you on, man? Make a choice,
Right. And that's good. That's what I see, that separation is the service to self, service to other. And within corporations, work with upper level CEOs and corporations. And so
that's going to be really important.
Oh, but you know what I'm so surprised about? Traditional corporation, I won't mention the name, these people are hungry for consciousness and more conscious than most. People walk around, corporate, bastards, like they're the enemy, and we have to occupy them.
Right.
They're you.
Right.
These are just people just like you and I.
Right.
Kind, smart people.
Right.
They're
hungry
not
people for consciousness.
Hungry, right. And not, they don't poo-poo it.
No.
So I really kind of stand in defense, like, you know, don't be criticizing corporate America. Corporate America is full
another
of people.
form, but it's another form of racism.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, you can put that in. You can put that brand on a lot of different stuff because the bottom line is they're human beings,
right.
and that's how we have to see them. That's we have
Without
to see. That's how we have to see each other.
Right.
You know, because it's no longer a matter of, well, which path has got the right answer, or, you know, which discipline do I need to get. We're all human beings, and right now, it's vitally important that we start figuring out what does that mean, because the dimensions of what we're going to find out over the next decades just boggles the mind. I mean, we haven't even scratched the surface of what we're capable of as human beings. Because the real truth is we have to master the process of bringing spirit into substance and then substance back into spirit. That's our human charge, as it were, from our Creator. So at that moment,
can you say that again?
Bringing spirit into substance, which is the physical.
Right.
And then learning how to take the substance back into the physical, back into spirit, I'm sorry. So that's what human beings are. That's why we're unique versus other beings on other galaxies or whatever other planets, you know, who are pure spirit. See, because we're physical beings who are trying to marry spirit with the physical. And once we're able to do that, then, you know, where it goes in terms of taking the Creator's plan outward is just goes. I mean, it just boggles the mind. It goes on and on and on. What we're going to be capable of teaching and showing and saying, wow, here's what we did here on Earth. What about you guys? You know, you're on board, and you know, and it's just when I sit there and start thinking of that, it's just sort of like, oh man, you need to pull back a little bit because you're journeying a little too far. But it's beautiful.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just beautiful. You know, you start thinking, oh, wow, if we all got to the point where, you know, we had an intimate relationship with each of our spirit personalities to the degree that we could manifest our angelic self on this planet in the physical when we needed to and allow it to go back into spirit when it needed to, then we're moving. Now we're traveling. Now we're doing stuff.
So does that mean all 9? You said there were 9?
Absolutely.
All 9.
Absolutely.
You can connect?
Absolutely. You
Really?
can sit down in a council with all your spirit personalities and say, how am I doing? How we doing? What do we need
Where
to
do you do that? Do you do it in a lodge? Do you do it in meditation?
I haven't.
You don't even need to do it anymore.
I'm painting a picture down the world about what's a human being.
Okay.
Here's what a human being can be.
Right. This is our potential.
This is our potential.
If we are to believe expansively, anything's possible.
Spirit and substance.
Yeah.
And substance back into spirit. Once you make that connection, that infinity loop, then to bring us full circle, you reach another plateau. And then you spiral up, and then you reach another plateau, and then you spiral up. And so this goes on and on and on.
See, I used to think there was a plateau, and then I would have arrived. Yeah.
You have at your current destination.
Exactly. Right. We already are living the enlightened life because we know we're alive and we're conscious. End of story. So stop seeking becoming enlightened. It's it's not.
We got to
just.
we got to take the program and just expand it way out. Way out.
Way quantum.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's exciting.
It is. It is. You've kind of illustrated where we can go, the beautiful possibility. And do you see anything standing in the way to an extent that won't happen?
No.
Okay. So all the stuff that's talked about in conspiracy circles and or HARP or chemtrails or special weaponry being, and the losing of our freedoms because we can't speak on the phone without being you don't think you think that's going to be consciousness is so
Cat's out of the bag, man. It's over.
Right, it's over.
Yeah.
So the weaponry will no longer...
Well,
it'll just be annoying.
There's... we all know it exists. We all know that there's an oppressive, predatory aspect of our world and stuff. But here's the thing. More and more people, as they wake up and gain more consciousness in whatever position they're in, a CEO, a general, a dictator, doesn't matter. They're going to come to the realization that something's changed in them. Something's changed. Just like when I came out of that sweat lodge for first, I said, something's changed, man. I don't know what it is, but something's different. Well, that's going to happen to everybody.
Every single person does have a soul and the potentiality or the possibility to wake up.
Absolutely.
Even
And will.
Really damaged people?
Absolutely.
Really?
And will. Absolutely.
And will.
There's no doubt about it.
Really?
Yeah. The future's crazy bright. I mean, it really is. It's mind-boggling bright. Somebody said to me the other day, they said, if you had an inkling of the blessings that were headed your way, your struggles would be totally
meaningless.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's just where we're headed, where we're going. It's just beyond our wildest dreams, our wildest imaginations, And our wildest dreams and our wildest imaginations are going to become the norm because we're going to be able to experience instant manifestation through trial and error,
But that, like I said, that cause and effect.
Yeah.
But the loop is shorter.
Yeah, but all the guys that have been, all the, the people that have been trying to subjugate the plan and stuff, it's over.
It's over.
They've lost.
So one of the things I'd like to talk to you about in our next interview is a little bit about spiritual bypassing. That's one of the things I think that could be more than, outdated weaponry and such, is people who want to get to the place of the beauty that you described. And I'm thinking the type. Whether we call them... And again, judging and classifying, but that there's a certain segment of people that don't have respect for that the darkness is part of the learning. And so the spiritual bypasser will be like, love and light, love V.W. Vans. Yeah. And then say someone in their life has a tragedy. Or you encounter a psychopath or... somebody that is just beyond, you assume that everyone operates the same way, and they don't.
Right.
But that bypasser will say no, or even about Hitler.
Right.
Well, that needed to exist because blah 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 blah, and it's all going to light. Yeah,
they're right, but you also have to take on personal responsibility and accountability.
Right.
If you're really truly carrying the light in a sober place, in a place that is non-judgmental, that is clean and clear.
You're operating within universal law.
Universal law, that you respect sacred law, you understand all these things. You've sought knowledge. For the need to absorb knowledge, you've done the work. It's work, and there's plenty of people out there say, "Well, I don't want to do the work. I just, it's all love. It's all be, the dolphins and that's okay. Everybody contributes their piece,
and
but
that's needed.
Yeah,
some
it's
beautiful
needed.
Chants coming from a hilltop over and over again can't be hurting anything.
No, but you're right. There's that's. Those things are going to play themselves out in this instant karma formula.
Okay. That's how they'll get clean.
Yeah, people start. Whether you're totally in the dark or totally in the light, and you're experiencing illusion on either one of them, that's going to come to the surface.
Yeah, as a part of process.
Yeah, because
so you don't even need to worry about that.
No, because you're going to realize that what you have to do to sober up. Somebody can be as addicted to the darkness as alcohol, or as addicted to the light as overeating. It's just at some point you have to come to the realization I'm off the track.
Right.
And I need to get back on the track.
And you just feel, I do see quite a few people off the track. So this is good news, that if you're off the track, nature always wins.
Yeah, exactly.
So if you're off the track, I don't need to worry about it.
Yeah, it's balance, man. It's
going to happen.
As things start balancing,
universal.
You're going to know whether you're part of the balance or imbalance. I mean, it's just going to be real clear.
Right. And in addition to doing these kind of things, one of the things that keeps coming through that I almost want to say, no, don't tell me that. I think James was one, and I'm seeing a healing center. You need a place. You need a place for people to be able to come to have a week-long thing. And it's like, no, I don't want to hear that directive yet. I have to do this first.
Well, actually, what I'm doing, my latest big project, we're trying to create a World Faiths University where
World's
Faiths University,
okay.
FAITHS.
Okay.
Because we feel that we need to create a scholastic atmosphere within where all these different religions and spiritual paths and traditional ways of dealing with earth medicine and etc. could come together in an open-minded space, and exchange information, exchange knowledge, and begin talking and debating things, and you'd have a Hindu and a Christian and a Native American guy talking about reincarnation or whatever in a public debate, but you'd also have students who are attending this, and they would receive like a certificate of completion over so many hours, and then we'd have some sort of rank. And then, when they went to like global corporations or whatever, and they were seeking to become involved in international business or whatever, they could say, I have a really strong connection to the spiritual roots of this country. So I can go in with respect and get respect.
Nice.
Because I can speak to it. All right. So, we've got, so I've got Thomas Southard, who's was the headmaster of St. John's Cathedral in New York City, as well as Shadyside Academy in Pittsburgh.
I've heard of that.
Yeah, it's a real prominent preparatory school. Yeah. Diana Whitney, who founded the Taos Institute and the United Religious Initiative, which is an interfaith development movement. Marvin Sadowski, Dr. Sadowski, who leads up a company called Leadership Strategies. He was in Santa Fe and then lives now in North Carolina. So we've got people on the board of advisors who are serious people about this. Yeah, we just had a meeting with a gentleman who's head of the National Episcopal Schools in New York City. And, so Tom did, my partner in this, and so we're going to be having a meeting with him here in New York City fairly soon, and he's really connected into a lot of other people who are in this interfaith development. So I'm just trying to get the word out, where maybe somebody, a financial angel all of a sudden hears this and goes, man, that's a great idea. And gets in touch with me and says, this is where faith comes into play. I'm like, I'll just keep pushing, and something will happen.
Yes, you have experience in knowing how to do that, plus a little faith. And because I've had that thought too, and then, the reaction was like, you're waiting for an angel? I'm going to come out. It's like, and when you look at it, it's like, I don't doubt that that's possible. Yeah. It's just, and I don't know how it works, yet I feel that it's already done.
Yeah.
I just don't know who the person will be, how it'll play out.
Yeah.
And that's, but you've got, nice little experiences to be like, I had faith.
Right.
Faith and legwork.
Right.
That happened.
That's
faith
it.
And legwork. And you show up, and synchronicity, and it's just like, well, why would we believe that won't work?
Exactly.
So.
That's exactly right. So you just, and if what we're saying today is true, this manifestation thing's going to start increasing. And we both agreed in the last 6 months there seems to be, people connecting.
Yes.
It is magic.
It is magic.
Absolutely.
Like what? Yeah.
And I can't remember this gentleman's name, but it was he was a Native American elder, and he said the two predominant energies in the fifth world are going to be love and magic. And he's absolutely correct. And magic is just starting to play out, and but it's got to move slow. You can't do this overnight. I mean, it just there's no way. People would just lose it.
Yes,
you know,
correct.
And so it's got to come on slow. You know, it's going to be like a soft summer wind. You know, that just kind of comes in and allows people to adjust and accept it and not be freaked out by it. You know, and so. In some way, you know, you've taken on the role of sportscaster. You know, all right, we're moving
no,
to
that
the
would
second
mean I'd be
inning
a political reporter because it's like politics is wrestling. So, but I like it. Yes, I'm documenting.
Right.
Like, what did Bill Moyers used to do? You know, On the Road with Bill Moyers.
Right.
It's like, on the journey with Kestrel.
Yeah.
And friends.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, and as the road just keeps opening up and the things get more and more interesting, it'll be I mean, you know, it'll be a ride for you. I mean, it really will be. Yeah, I totally think you're at the right place at the right time, doing the right thing. You know, there's nothing like miracles to keep you entertained.
Right. Right.
You know, once you get into the place
football.
where miracles start happening, this is like, God, this just doesn't get any better than this. And they will be coming. Okay. It's going to rain.
And they already are. I mean, I feel them in my life, and I'm so grateful. But one of the things we thought of doing at the end of the interview is asking people, because we're just music nerds, and so much of my learning of who I am has come through music. Deep identification with lyrics and songs that have, you know, I'm the kind of person who gets chills. So, is there a song, a band, any kind of musical influence, and if it wasn't music, poetry, or even a movie, or is there some one or two kind of like creative creations that touched your heart in a way that maybe you didn't even realize at the time, but that you would say is the thing that touched you deepest?
Well, you know, Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young is huge to me. Yeah. I got to see them at Red Rock. And it was just unbelievable. I mean, it was just like, oh, my God.
When was that?
This is just magical beyond. Oh, this was, man, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, something like
really?
that.
That recently?
Yeah, Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young at Red Rock. It was phenomenal. Just phenomenal. And it was really magical, you know. And you know, so their music takes me back to when I was living in San Francisco in the late 60s, early 70s, you know, and, you know, the houseboats out there on Sausalito and the Marin County and up, you know, the North Coast and all that. So, I mean, when they start playing, I'm just right out there, you know. Yeah, so then, you know, they...
I'm in Woodstock.
Yeah.
Yeah. I heard them when I'm in Woodstock.
Yeah, you know, and, you know, without them, I probably wouldn't be here doing this. You know, I mean, I really honestly got to say that. Yeah, you know, because it was like, you know, they sparked in me a knowing that, hey, man, there's something out there for us, you know, and it's more than what they're trying to sell us. So wake up, you know, because it's not about Vietnam. It's not about all the oppression that we're experiencing here and the uprooting of, you know, the family and everything else that created there in that time. It just was just devastating for people like myself and my age, you know. There's a reason for this. You got to figure out what it is.